I never thought I'd be the guy posting one of these stories. You always read them and think, how could someone be so blind? How do you not know the person sleeping next to you is a complete stranger? Well, I'm here to tell you exactly how it happens. It happens slowly. So slowly, you convince yourself you're just being paranoid. My name's Mark. I'm 34, and until a year ago, I was married to a woman I'll call Sarah. We had been together for 8 years, married for 5. We didn't have kids yet, but we had the house in the suburbs, the golden retriever, the dual income comfort. I was an architect, and Sarah was a rising star in corporate marketing. I loved her. I worshipped the ground she walked on. I thought we were that annoying couple everyone secretly envies because we just got each other. But looking back, the cracks started showing about a year before everything blew up. She got a promotion, a big one. It meant longer hours, more travel, and working closely with the new vice president of sales, a guy named David. I'd met David a few times at company mixers. He was in his mid-40s, married with 2 teenagers, wore watches that cost more than my car, and had that fake, aggressive charisma of a guy who peaked in college but still thinks he's the alpha male in every room. I didn't think anything of it. I trusted my wife implicitly. That was my first mistake. The changes in Sarah were subtle at first. She started going to the gym at 6 a.m. instead of after work. She bought a whole new wardrobe, lots of designer stuff she said she needed for her new executive image. And then came the phone behavior. For 7 years, we knew each other's passcodes. We used each other's phones to order food or change Spotify playlists in the car. Suddenly, her phone was glued to her hand. If she went to the bathroom, the phone went with her. If it was on the kitchen counter, it was always face down. One night, I reached over to grab her phone just to check the time because mine was charging in the other room. She practically dove across the couch to snatch it out of my hand, claiming she was waiting for a confidential HR email. Then came the intimacy. It just stopped. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. She was always exhausted, stressed, or coming down with something. We went from being incredibly close to feeling like platonic roommates passing each other in the hallway. When I tried to talk to her about it, she gaslit me into another dimension. She cried, called me controlling, and said I wasn't supporting her career growth. She told me I was projecting my own insecurities on her success. And the saddest part, I believed her. I actually went to individual therapy because I thought I was the problem. The truth came out on a random Tuesday in November. It wasn't because I hired a private investigator or hacked her accounts. It was because of sheer dumb luck and Apple's cloud ecosystem. Sarah had upgraded to a new iPhone a few months prior. Her old phone was sitting in a junk drawer in my home office. I was looking for a spare charging cable, and I accidentally knocked the old phone, lighting up the screen. It wasn't wiped. It was connected to our home Wi-Fi. And right there on the lock screen, a notification popped up. An iMessage from a contact simply named D. It said, "Still tasting you from this morning. Can't wait for the Dallas trip." My heart stopped. The world literally tilted. I felt that cold, sickening drop in my stomach, like I was falling off a building. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely unlock the phone. But she hadn't changed the passcode on this old device. It was still our anniversary. Oh, the irony. I opened the messages, and there it was, months of it. Pictures I can never unsee. Texts that made me physically throw up in the bathroom sink. They weren't just sleeping together. They were in a full-blown relationship. They made fun of me. She complained about my cooking, my clothes, how boring and domestic I was compared to David's exciting life. She even told him she was planning to divorce me after the first quarter bonuses hit in April, so she wouldn't have to split her bonus with me. She was stringing me along for 5 more months, just to protect her bank account.
I spent 2 hours on the floor of my office, just staring at the wall. I cried until I couldn't breathe. But then, something inside me snapped. The loving, supportive husband died on that floor. What stood up was a man who was going to systematically dismantle her life. If I confronted her right then, she would cry, delete the evidence, spin a narrative to our friends that we just grew apart, and try to screw me over in the divorce. I couldn't let her control the narrative. I took high-resolution photos of every single text message and image using my own phone. I exported the chat logs and emailed them to a secure, new email address she didn't know about. I printed copies and put them in a safety deposit box. Then, I plugged the old phone back in, put it exactly where I found it, and closed the drawer. When she came home that night, I kissed her on the cheek, asked her how her day was, and cooked her favorite dinner. I smiled. I laughed at her jokes. I played the role of the oblivious, loving husband perfectly. I had 180 days until April, and I was going to use every single one of them.
The next morning, I called the most ruthless divorce attorney in the city, a guy who charged an obscene hourly rate but was known for taking 0 prisoners. Let's call him Vance. I showed Vance the evidence. He smiled, a very scary, very professional smile. Because we had no kids, the divorce was going to be mostly about assets, and since I lived in an at-fault state, where infidelity could significantly impact alimony and asset division, the texts where she explicitly stated her plan to hide her bonus from me were pure gold. Under Vance's guidance, I started moving quietly. We had a joint savings account. Over the next several months, I slowly started routing more of my freelance architectural income into a private account she couldn't access, claiming the market was slow. I also needed to ensure David didn't walk away clean. I did some digging. David's wife, Emily, was a stay-at-home mom. Her family had money. In fact, her father was one of the major investors in the company where David and my wife worked. That piece of information was the key to my entire revenge strategy. If David went down, he'd go down hard. For 5 months, I lived a double life. I listened to Sarah lie to my face about her late-night strategy meetings. I washed her clothes, knowing where she'd been. I even helped her pack her bags for the Dallas conference, which I knew was actually a romantic weekend in Cabo with David. It was psychological torture. It ate me alive. I lost 15 pounds. But every time I felt like breaking, I read the texts where she called me a pathetic placeholder. That kept the fire burning.
April finally arrived. Her bonus hit the account on a Thursday. My lawyer had the divorce papers finalized, signed, and ready to serve. But handing them to her in the kitchen felt too quiet, too easy. She needed to feel the public humiliation she was planning to avoid. That Friday was Sarah's 32nd birthday. She had been hinting that she wanted to do something low-key but elegant. I told her I was organizing a special birthday dinner at a high-end steakhouse downtown. I invited her parents, her sister, and my parents. 6 of us in a private dining room. What Sarah didn't know was that at 5 p.m. that afternoon,
While she was getting her hair done for the dinner, my lawyer filed the papers with the court, officially freezing our joint assets. At 6 p.m., I drafted an email. The recipients were David's wife, Emily, the HR department of Sarah and David's company, and the CEO of their company. The subject line was Code of Conduct Violation and Affair Evidence regarding VP David last name and Director Sarah last name. Attached was a meticulously organized PDF containing the most damning text messages, timestamps, hotel receipts I had found, and undeniable photographic proof of their affair on company time using company funds for their trips. I set the email on a scheduled send for 7:30 p.m., right in the middle of our dinner.
We were sitting in the private room. The wine was flowing. Sarah was glowing, playing the perfect daughter and the perfect wife. Her parents were telling me how lucky I was to have such a successful, driven partner. I just smiled and nodded. At 7:35 p.m., Sarah's phone buzzed. Then it buzzed again. Then her sister's phone went off. Sarah picked up her phone. I watched the color drain from her face in real time. It was like watching a ghost possess someone. Her eyes went wide, her hands started shaking, and she looked up at me in absolute horror. She had just gotten the frantic texts from David. His wife had seen the email. The CEO had seen the email. I slowly wiped my mouth with my napkin and stood up. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a large, thick manila envelope. I placed it gently on the table in front of her. "Happy birthday, Sarah," I said, my voice completely steady. "Those are divorce papers. Your bonus is currently frozen by a court order, and I know about David." The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Her father started to say, "Mark, what kind of joke is this?" I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. I looked at her parents and said, "I suggest you ask your daughter why she's been sleeping with her married boss for the last year and laughing about me behind my back. The proof is in the envelope." Sarah started hyperventilating. She reached out for my arm, crying, "Mark, please, let's talk about this outside, please." I pulled my arm away. "We have nothing to talk about. My lawyer will contact you on Monday. Do not come back to the house. Your bags are packed and sitting on the front porch." I threw a $100 bill on the table for my drink, kissed my mother on the cheek, and walked out of the restaurant. I didn't look back.
The fallout was biblical. David's wife, Emily, went scorched earth. Because her father was a major investor, David wasn't just fired, he was publicly humiliated within their industry. He lost his job, his marriage, and access to his kids in a brutal custody battle. To save his own skin in his divorce, David immediately threw Sarah under the bus, claiming she pursued him and harassed him, which was a lie. But watching them turn on each other was poetic justice. Sarah was fired the following Monday. Companies don't take kindly to executives expensing romantic getaways under the guise of client meetings. Because of the undeniable proof of infidelity and the paper trail of her trying to hide assets, the divorce judge showed her zero mercy. She didn't get a dime of my premarital assets, she lost the house, and she had to pay my legal fees because of her financial deceit. She tried calling me from dozens of different numbers. She wrote letters begging for forgiveness, saying David manipulated her, that I was the only man she truly loved. I never responded to a single one. Complete silence is the most deafening response you can give a narcissist. It's been over a year now. I sold that suburban house and bought a beautiful loft in the city. I kept the dog. I got promoted at my firm, and I've started casually dating again.
I heard through the grapevine that Sarah is now living in a tiny apartment on the outskirts of the city, working a mid-level job she hates, completely alienated from our old friend group. Sometimes people ask me how I stayed so calm during those 6 months of hell. The truth is, I wasn't calm. I was dying inside. But I realized that reacting in anger gives them power. It lets them call you crazy or abusive. But patience, cold, calculated patience, that takes everything from them. So, to anyone out there suspecting their partner is cheating, don't scream, don't yell. Secure your assets, gather your proof in silence, and when the time is right, let them burn their own lives to the ground. Thanks for listening.